I stood in my new kitchen, fingertips gliding over the quartz island as soft morning light filtered through the windows overlooking the Puget Sound. The scent of cedar from the freshly refinished floors still lingered. My house. Even after a month, the words felt foreign. This $850,000, 0 cents, coastal home in Tacoma was the reward for 10 years of quiet grind. Coding freelance contracts through the night, living below my means, and keeping one enormous truth from my family. The doorbell chimed at 1 p.m. sharp. Of course. If there was free food and a chance to gawk, the Martins were never late. Today was my housewarming, my first real celebration since turning 30. I'd hoped this gathering might finally earn me something I'd never had: acknowledgement. But deep down I knew better. I opened the door to find my sister Natalie in a lemon-yellow sundress, her 4-year-old twins racing past me like a starting gun had gone off. Mom was close behind, her eyes darting over the siding like she was appraising it for a quick sale. Dad stood further back, hands in pockets, already shifting like he wanted to leave. Natalie's jaw dropped. "Oh my God, Claire, this place is massive. You did all this on your own?" The edge in her voice was sharp, disguised as awe, but dipped in disbelief. "I worked. A lot," I said simply, gesturing them inside. "Want the tour?" Mom let out a tiny snort. "People don't get homes like this just by working hard. Not unless there's a man or a secret trust fund behind it." She didn't finish her thought, but she didn't have to. Not someone like you, the dropout, the black sheep who left Chicago at 19 and never looked back. I took them room to room, each one sparking side eyes and murmurs. The kids barreled through the hallway, leaving fingerprints on the glass and tiny sneaker marks on the new floors. I gritted my teeth. They were just kids. I kept telling myself that. Back in the kitchen, I'd laid out lunch, just sandwiches, salad, iced tea. I barely got the tray down before Natalie turned to Mom and said, "You know, this place would be perfect for the twins. Claire doesn't need all this space alone." Mom nodded slowly. Then she looked at me and asked, "So, are you handing over the keys?" As everyone gathered around the island, Natalie's oldest, Liam, reached for a juice box and knocked it straight onto the floor. The bright red splash spread across the ivory rug I'd bought just last week. "Oh, sweetie, careful," Natalie said absently, scrolling her phone, making no move to clean it up. "Honestly, Claire, this house isn't very child-friendly, is it?" I knelt down, grabbing paper towels and blotting at the stain. "It's not meant to be. I live alone." "That's exactly the problem," Mom cut in, her voice rising in that holier-than-thou tone I hadn't missed. "All this space just for one person. It's selfish." I stood up slowly, tossing the soaked paper towels in the bin. "Selfish? This is my house. I paid for every inch of it." "About that," Natalie said, exchanging a glance with Mom. My stomach sank. I knew that look. The last time she wore it, she'd talked Mom and Dad into handing her my college fund. Because she was pregnant and I was just experimenting with life. "This place is perfect for us," she continued brightly, gesturing toward her twins now scribbling on the wall with markers. "The school district's fantastic. The kids need a yard. And Claire, you don't even use half these rooms." I let out a short laugh. No one joined in. "You're joking, right? This is my house." Natalie didn't flinch. "Don't be selfish. He has 3 children," Mom said firmly. "You have, what? A career and an empty bed?" The words hit harder than I expected, but I didn't let it show. "I need it," I replied quietly, "because it's mine. Because I earned it." Dad, silent until now, finally spoke. "How? Claire, how did you even get approved for this with your history?" "My history, the time they disowned me, cut off everything, money, contact, support, because I wouldn't be the daughter they scripted. But what they never understood was that exile became my launch pad. You'd be surprised what I'm capable of," I said coolly. Natalie straightened, hands splayed on the counter. "Well, we've already talked it through. The kids love it here. It just makes more sense for a family to have this kind of space." "You can move into our apartment," Mom added. It's perfect for a single woman. You've decided. That cold, simmering anger welled up in my chest. You don't get to decide anything about my house. Claire, don't be difficult, Mom snapped. I looked around, at the rug, the wall, the juice stain, the judgment, and realized this wasn't just about a house anymore. It never was. Mom let out a slow, theatrical sigh. Claire, we're trying to help you. Living alone in a house this size, it's not healthy. You need to think about your family. My family? I laughed, sharp, bitter, real. Where was this family when you kicked me out at 19? When I was sleeping in my car outside a 24-hour gym just so I could finish my coding classes? When Natalie took my college fund and you said she needed it more? Dad shifted uncomfortably. That was different. You were being unreasonable. Unreasonable? My voice rose. Because I didn't want to run your dying paper company? Because I chose to study software engineering instead of filing forms in your crumbling back office? The business could have been yours, he snapped. If you weren't so stubborn, you might have saved it. I steadied my breath. You mean the business you ignored advice on, refused to modernize, and tanked out of pride? The one you ran into the ground? His face flushed red. How dare you speak to me like... No. How dare you? I said, cutting him off. You walk into my home, insult my life, and then have the audacity to demand I just hand it over to Natalie. Natalie crossed her arms, her lip curled into a pout I'd seen since childhood. You're just jealous. I did everything the right way. I have a real family, a real life. The right way? I reached into my back pocket and pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over a PDF I'd kept locked away for a decade. You mean trapping your boyfriend at 19 and draining my college fund? That's the right way? That's enough. Mom's voice rang out as she stood. Pack your things. We're doing this whether you like it or not. Family comes first. I smiled then. A slow, steady smile that seemed to unnerve them. You're right. Family does come first. That's why I bought this house. With my money. What money? Dad asked, barely above a whisper. I tapped my screen and turned it to face them. Remember when you kicked me out? I was still legally listed as a silent partner in the company. They stared. When you filed bankruptcy, the trust Grandpa set up triggered a settlement. You forgot I was still protected. I didn't. Natalie blinked. What? Trust? The one Grandpa created when I was 12. The one you couldn't revoke without my signature. Mom paled. That's impossible. We removed you from everything. No, I said calmly. You tried to, but you missed a clause. And that clause paid for this house. A rather large one, I added. Dad's hands trembled as he scrolled through the document on my phone. This is $850,000 0 cents. Exactly what I paid for this house, I said, stepping past him to reclaim my phone. Funny how life works, isn't it? Natalie opened her mouth, then closed it, eyes wide. But that should have been shared. I have kids to think about. Kids you chose to have when you could barely cover your own rent, I said flatly. Kids you used as leverage to steal my future. Well, not this time. I looked each of them in the eye. This house is mine, bought with money I was legally entitled to. And now? You're all leaving. You can't do this, Mom's voice cracked with fury. We're your family. I calmly walked to the front door and pulled it open, holding it wide. No, you are my family. You lost that right the day you threw me away. They hesitated, stunned. Get out of my house. This isn't over, Dad growled, grabbing Mom's arm as he turned to go. You're right, I said, voice like steel. It's just beginning. I turned to Natalie with a final glance. Oh, and you might want to check your apartment lease. I bought your building last week. Rent goes up in 30 days. The look on her face, shock, rage, disbelief, was everything I had dreamed of during those nights spent alone, building something from nothing while they lived like I didn't exist. As the door shut behind them, I leaned back against the wall and looked around. My house. For the first time in a decade, I felt peace. They tried to break me. They did. But I rebuilt. And now, surrounded by hardwood floors and stained walls from my niece's marker drawings, I stood stronger than ever. I pulled out my phone and opened a message thread labeled Contractor Team Renovation, but first I sent a single text to my lawyer. They took the bait, start the proceedings. Then I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of Oregon Pinot Noir, and allowed myself to smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's watching the people who underestimated you realize they never truly knew who you were. The fallout was swift. Within hours, my phone exploded. Texts, voicemails, emails, demands, threats, pleas. Natalie's messages came in rapid bursts. You can't raise the rent, I have kids. This is cruel, even for you. Mom and Dad are furious. Fix this. I read every word calmly, my glass of wine in hand, and finally, without anger. Only clarity. Years ago, words like those might have sent me into a spiral of guilt and second-guessing. Not anymore. Now, they only confirmed what I'd always suspected. They only reached out when they needed something. But the most interesting message wasn't from Natalie or Mom. It came from Dad's old business partner, Marcus Caldwell. Heard about the settlement. Smart keeping it quiet all these years. Your father's losing it at the country club. Coffee soon? I smiled. Marcus had always been the one voice of reason back then. The only one who'd pulled me aside the week after they kicked me out and said, "Stay quiet. Keep your name on the papers. You'll thank me someday." He was right. Just then, my phone rang again. Mom. She'd already called twice in the last hour. I let it go to voicemail. Again. The third time, I answered. "How dare you?" she hissed, her voice a cocktail of outrage and hysteria. "After everything we've done for you." "Everything you've done for me," I cut in calmly. Like throwing me out at 19, handing my college fund to Natalie, or marching into my home and demanding I hand it over to your real family? "We gave you life," she said, sniffling now, and then cut me out of it the moment I didn't play the part. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice was syrupy. Manipulative. "We don't have to fight. Come to dinner tomorrow, sweetheart. We'll talk. Work this out." I didn't hesitate. "No thanks. I've got plans." "Plans? With who?" Her voice sharpened. "You don't have anyone." I laughed. "That's where you're wrong. I have me. And for the first time, that's more than enough." The next morning, I met Sarah, my lawyer, at her downtown Tacoma office. She'd handled everything over the years: the trust, the settlement, the apartment building acquisition. "They're trying to contest it," she said, sliding a form across her desk. "Your father claims he wasn't properly notified of your claim." I pulled out an envelope from my bag. Certified receipt, 10 years old. He signed for it. He just didn't read it, like everything else he ignored before the business failed. Sarah's lips curled into a grin. "You really covered every angle." "I learned from expert manipulators," I said, standing. "I just used their tactics for something honest." She nodded. "One last thing. Your sister's lease file? The old landlord left some notes, repeated late payments. Minor damage, nothing terrible, but—" I raised an eyebrow. "That'll be useful." And just like that, their story started to unravel, this time with facts they couldn't rewrite. If you've made it this far, you know Claire's story is just getting started. Tap subscribe so you don't miss what happens when Natalie realizes the lease isn't her only problem. "Let me guess," Sarah said, tapping her pen against the file. "She plays the single mom card every time?" "Like clockwork." She leaned back. "Want me to start the eviction process?" I paused, considering. "Not yet. Just enforce the lease to the letter. No more grace periods. No more damage write-offs. She wants to be treated like family? Fine. Real family doesn't take advantage of each other." As I stepped out of Sarah's office and into the cool Tacoma breeze, I spotted her. "Natalie." She was leaning against my car, her mascara smudged and eyes red. It was a look I'd once rushed to comfort. Not anymore. "Please," she started, voice cracking. Claire, you can't do this. Think about the kids. Stop. I held up a hand. Stop hiding behind them. Stop using them as shields. It's pathetic. I'm their mother. I have to protect them. No, you have to teach them. Teach them not to lie, not to manipulate, not to expect handouts because someone else made sacrifices. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. I'll tell everyone about the abortion. I froze. That memory, locked away for so long, slammed into me like a wave. We were teenagers, still sisters, still close. That's supposed to be our secret, I said softly. Natalie's eyes didn't blink. They'll see who you really are. I didn't flinch. Then tell them how you drove me to the clinic, held my hand, and promised no one would ever know. Tell them how you used that trust to take my college fund 2 years later, because you were keeping yours. She recoiled as if slapped. You're horrible. No, I said. I'm honest, for the first time in my life, and it feels incredible. I got into my car, rolled down the window, and added, Rent's due next week, full amount, on time, or we'll be having a very different conversation. As I pulled away, I passed the old family house. Dad's truck in the driveway, Mom's silhouette pacing behind the curtain, probably on the phone already, spinning her version of reality. My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. Your dad's trying to rally old contacts against you. Too bad most of them lost money because of him. They're with you now. I smiled as I turned onto my quiet street, sun casting golden lines across my driveway. My house, my peace, my rules. Money they never believed I was smart enough to claim. Inside, I walked room to room, fingers brushing the walls I'd painted, the furniture I'd picked out with intention. My space. My sanctuary. In the kitchen, I finally wiped off the last of the faded marker drawings from Natalie's kids. The wall looked clean again. Cleansed. In its place, I hung a small frame with the original scanned copy of the settlement check, a reminder of how far I'd come. My phone buzzed. A group text from Mom. Family dinner tomorrow. Attendance is mandatory. We need to discuss recent events and find a solution that works for everyone. I typed slowly, deliberately. Sorry, can't make it. I'm having my house blessed tomorrow. You know, the one I bought with my settlement money. The one you all tried to take from me. Send my love to Natalie's kids. Hope they're enjoying the apartment while it lasts. Then I blocked the entire group, poured a glass of chilled rosé, and curled into my window seat, watching the first stars scatter across the Pacific sky. Let them plan, let them guilt, let them twist the narrative. I had spent a decade building armor, crafting my future, preparing for this exact moment. They thought they could storm in and take what they didn't build. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The next morning, I stepped outside and stopped mid-sip of my coffee. My front lawn was littered with moving boxes, at least 20, half soaked from the sprinklers. The rest already collapsing. A bright yellow post-it was stuck to my door. Since you won't answer our calls, we're moving in. Family doesn't need permission, Natalie. I actually laughed out loud. They really didn't know me. Within minutes, I was on the phone with the police and my private security company. Camera footage, already uploading. Trespass report, ready. Officer Martinez, who I'd met when closing on the house, was the first to arrive. Morning, Miss Claire. Trouble with squatters or just gambling with patients? Just some uninvited deliveries, I said, handing him the folder with my restraining order application and photo timestamps. As we waited for backup, I explained everything, briefly but clearly, the settlement, the apartment, the harassment, the attempted house grab. He shook his head. You're sure you want to press charges? I didn't blink. Absolutely, it's time they learned what consequences look like. As if on cue, 3 cars screeched into my driveway. Mom, Dad, and Natalie, with her kids trailing behind, burst out of their cars like they were storming a battlefield, only to stop cold at the sight of 3 police cruisers in my driveway. What have you done? Mom shrieked, rushing toward the porch, only to be stopped by Officer Martinez, who calmly stepped in her path. We're her family, she cried. We have every right to be here. Martinez didn't flinch. Ma'am, you have no legal right to be on this property. This is a private residence. You're trespassing. Trespassing? Dad's face flushed a dangerous shade of red. That's my daughter. I stepped out onto the porch, arms crossed. Exactly. I'm your daughter, the one you disowned, the one you kicked out, the one who owns this house and doesn't want you here. Natalie pushed forward, one hand on her son's shoulder. Please, Claire, we have nowhere else to go. The apartment, I said flatly. You mean the one you haven't paid rent on in 3 months? The one with $15,000, 0 cents in documented damages? Her eyes went wide. How did... I own the building, Natalie, I said. You really thought I wouldn't read the reports, the complaints, the bounced checks. Come on. Mom's tone changed instantly, her voice laced with syrup. Claire, sweetheart, we can work this out. We're family. Blood is thicker than water. I tilted my head. Funny you should bring up blood. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a photo, then held it out. Her face drained of color. It was a picture, faded but clear, of her, Dad, and Marcus, taken 20 years ago, standing beside a casket. My real father's casket. What? Where did you get that? Dad stammered. Marcus, I said. He gave it to me, along with the truth about who my biological father really was, the man you pushed out, the one who actually built the company. The officer stood still, even Martinez, as if waiting for the next scene in a courtroom drama. That's why Grandpa set up the trust in my name, I continued, because he knew he was protecting what was mine from you. Dad lunged forward, face twisted. 2 officers stepped in instantly, holding him back. You're lying, he yelled. Marcus lied to you. No, I said quietly. The DNA test didn't, and neither did the old business records. You took everything from my real father and drove it into the ground. Natalie's kids were crying now, confused, frightened. I felt for them. They didn't ask for any of this. They were innocent in all of this, the kids. Unlike their mother. I turned to Officer Martinez. I'd like to press charges, trespassing, harassment, and attempted breaking and entering, and please make sure the restraining order gets filed today. Mom's voice broke as she stepped forward, real tears cutting down her cheeks for once. Claire, you can't do this. We'll be ruined. Like you tried to ruin me, I asked, quiet but steady. Like you ruined my real father's name, his legacy? No, Mom, you did this to yourselves. The next hour blurred together. Officers taking statements, Natalie sobbing on the lawn, my dad cursing at paperwork, the kids asking why they had to leave, the stack of moving boxes, half empty, mostly staged, was taken in as evidence. Typical. All appearance, no substance. By the time the last cruiser pulled away, silence returned, like a warm blanket. That evening I sat in my study, fingers grazing the edges of old black and white photographs Marcus had handed me. My real father's face looked back, his eyes, my eyes, his smile, unmistakably mine. All these years I'd felt like an outsider in my own family. Now I knew why. My phone buzzed. Marcus. They're at my door, he said without any greeting, demanding I tell them I lied, screaming on the porch. Did you? I asked, though I already knew. Of course not, he said, firm. Your father was my best friend. I kept my promise, to him and to you. Watching how they treated you, it killed me. But I had to wait. You had to be ready. I smiled softly, glancing at a photo of my father holding me in his arms. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. Don't thank me yet, he chuckled. Wait until they find out about the other trust accounts your father set up, the ones maturing next month. I hung up, heart thudding, not from anxiety, but from relief. I walked to the window. The neighborhood was calm again, no shouting, no guilt, just the hum of a quiet street in a life I built myself. A text from Sarah popped up. Restraining order approved. 3 years, no contact. Amanda's eviction is scheduled. Your parents' harassment summons goes out Friday. Some might say I destroyed a family, but what do you call people who steal your name, your future, your truth? Not family. I pulled out one final photo. My father, young and proud, holding baby me under a spring sun. On the back, written in his steady hand, to my daughter who will one day know the truth, everything I built was for you. Well, Dad, I whispered, raising my glass to the framed photo beside me, I finally know the truth. And everything I built, it was for me. Outside, the last slivers of sunlight stretched long across the lawn where, just a year ago, Helen, James, and Natalie had tried to reclaim what was never theirs. That day felt like a lifetime ago. Tonight, all I felt was peace. No more hiding, no more proving, just living. On my terms. 1 year later, I stood in the back garden of my home, trimming the roses Marcus had helped me plant in early spring. They were my biological father's favorite. Each vibrant bloom felt like a message, a legacy I had never known I was part of until now. Marcus visited often. As we planted together, he told stories, small, quiet ones, about the man who had loved me before I could even remember him. My real father. Not James. Not the man who saw me as leverage, then liability, but the man who built something, lost it, and still planned ahead. For me. The neighborhood had changed too. Natalie's eviction had made local news. Mother of 3 evicted by secret property owner. A family scandal. She fled Tacoma shortly after, moving across the state to live with a cousin in Spokane. I heard little about her, though every couple of months, her kids would send me hand-drawn letters, sweet, hopeful messages from children who deserved a better start. As for Helen and James, or rather, as I now thought of them, those people, they didn't survive the fallout with grace. The harassment charges led to forced apologies and community service. The truth about my parentage broke their image. Their well-groomed social circle turned its back. They sold the house and relocated to Florida, hoping distance could erase their shame. It couldn't. Marcus had filled the hole they left behind, not just as a mentor, but as a father figure I didn't know I needed. He'd bring over old VHS tapes, handwritten notes, and tiny things from my father's desk, remnants of a life stolen too soon. Your dad would be proud, he told me one evening as I typed at my desk in the home office. You have his drive, and his fire. The doorbell rang. A sound that used to send my stomach flipping, now just part of my calm routine. Sarah stood on the porch, holding a thick envelope and her ever-professional smile. It's done, she said, handing it over. The final trust has matured. Everything your father set aside is now officially yours, free and clear. Inside was a letter. Not from the bank, from him. My father, my dearest daughter. If you're reading this, then Marcus has done his part, and you've discovered the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from James and Helen, but I made sure to protect your future. The money, the trusts, those are tools, but your true inheritance is your resilience, your strength, your ability to rise above people who tried to keep you down. I may not have watched you grow up, but I watched over you through every plan, every safeguard. Everything I built was for you. Love, Dad. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. Marcus placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. You really did think of everything, I said, voice thick. Marcus nodded. He was always 10 steps ahead. Just like you, I said quietly. The trust added another $2 million 0 cents to my holdings, but the dollar amount barely registered. What mattered was the validation. The love embedded in every precaution my father took. That night, I hosted a small dinner in my garden, just the people who mattered. Marcus, Sarah, Officer Martinez, who had become a good friend, a few others who had stood beside me in the hardest year of my life. We ate beneath the soft twinkle of hanging lights and the perfume of my father's roses. To new beginnings, Marcus toasted, raising his glass. And to family, Sarah added, the kind we choose, not the ones who try to use us. I looked around the table, truly looked. These people weren't bound to me by blood, but by truth, loyalty, and mutual respect. Things I'd never known from the ones who claimed to love me. They tried to break me, to mold me into what they needed, to take what was never theirs, and in doing so they set me free. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting soft golden light across the rosebeds. I smiled. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't your real family at all. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are. And sometimes, just sometimes, the truth sets you free in ways you never imagined. I was my father's daughter. Strong, resilient, and finally, home. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If my story stirred something in you, if you've ever felt underestimated, pushed aside, or silenced, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done. Share a word of support, a lesson you've learned, or advice you'd give someone finding their voice. I read every message, and your words mean more than you know. Subscribe if you believe in quiet strength, in justice served, and in the power of reclaiming your story. Because sometimes standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's survival, and you deserve to be heard too.